Hi, this is Josiah, and I'm going to be teaching you how I brew kombucha and maybe help you out in the kombucha process. So, to get started, the very beginning, if you look over here, you'll see that I have my kombucha, 2 1-gallon glass containers that I've been brewing for about a week, and I tasted and make sure it's reached the right level. So once you have some kombucha, you can also use starting kombucha, like if you get it from me, or if you get it from the store, you can use that as well. So the very first step that you use is you need to get, I'm going to give you directions for 1 gallon, and so you can scale this however is appropriate for you. So for 1 gallon, in this case I'm making actually 2 gallons, so it'll be double the normal amount if you're doing 1 gallon. So for every 1 gallon, you're going to do 3 cups of water. And so I'm doing 2, so it'll be 6 cups of water. So I would fill this up to 6 cups of hot water, and then I would add it over to the stovetop, which I've already done here. You then turn the heat on high and cover it. Oops, that's the wrong one. Turn it high on high. You can see if you look in here, there's 6 cups of water in there. Cover it, and then you let it sit there until it's boiling. This takes the longest step, so you want to start this first and go from there. Now we're going to be adding in, here you can see I have Lipton black tea. I get this from Costco in bulk. And here you would add in 6 tea bags. There you go, 6 tea bags per 1 gallon. Because I'm doing 2 gallons again, then I will do a total of 12 tea bags. Now note that that is since we're having a total of 6 cups of water, that's basically 2 bags per cup, making a concentrated tea. So we're gonna let that sit there and boil while we get all of our other ingredients together. Okay, so next up, while we're waiting for that, you can see over in here, I have my kombucha bottles. These are 16-ounce flip-top ones that you can get from Amazon. The juice that I add to these is a combination of Dole 100% pineapple juice and some Jumex mango nectar. And then per each of these bottles, you're going to put 1/2 of a cup of combined juice. And so I put 3/4 pineapple juice roughly and 1/4 mango juice. I've already added that into 2 of these, and I'm now going to add that into the other ones. These amounts are rough. You can be more precise if you want it, but kombucha is very forgiving. So some might have a little bit more mango than others. I put less mango juice in mine compared to pineapple juice because mango is a very strong flavor. And if you have like half mango or more than that in mango, then you will get a very strong mango taste, which I don't find is as good as combining the others. Now, when I show you this design, each gallon, since it's at the very top of a gallon, will make approximately 7 of these 16-ounce containers. So here you'll notice I have 6 and 1, 7 on this side. Now 7 additional one I'm adding for the 2nd gallon. And that's not counting the starting kombucha that you end up with for renewing your next batch. You'll see this as I go. I'm going to interrupt what I'm doing to check on the water to see if it's boiling yet. And in my case, it is boiling. Yours won't boil this fast necessarily, but I had already boiled it once before. That's why it operated as fast as it did. So you stop it once it starts boiling. And then you're just gonna toss these tea bags straight in. You don't have to take off the strings or anything like that. I used to, but I discovered that you don't really need to, and it just slows you down. Make sure that you don't leave the water still boiling. Otherwise, if you do, it might potentially, and I'm just pushing them down into the water so they're submerged a little bit right at the beginning. And I cover that. And then I'm gonna set a timer. Hey Google, set a timer for 20 minutes.
All right, 20 minutes.
And it takes approximately 20 minutes for it to steep in order to finish pulling out all of the caffeine, etc., and the tea from the tea bags. All right, so now I'm going to finish continuing in here. I ran out of my pineapple juice. I find that I like storing it in mason jars when they're not in use. I forgot to mix this first one, so I have to pour it back and forth a couple times to get it really mixed up here. So storing in mason jars between uses in the fridge is a good way to store the juice in between. Now you notice I don't really worry about spilling a little bit of juice or something on the outside of the bottles. That's why I'm doing it in the sink. And at the very end, I will rinse off all the bottles after they're closed with some hot water to make sure I take out any juice that's on the outside. All right, so that's the juice has now been added. Sometimes what I'll do, since that I use a lot more mango juice than pineapple juice, is I just pour the remainder of the pineapple juice into the mango, which makes it slightly more pineapple-y, but that's okay. You may notice that, remember that mango has a really strong taste otherwise. All right, so this container is closed. I'll put that in the recycling soon. We've got these two. I'm not going to put them in the fridge yet because I need to rinse them off, and right now, as you can see, my sink is very full. So I'm going to come back over here. This step is still in the process. That's got about another 17 minutes to go before it's ready. So now I'm ready to add the kombucha into those bottles. So here, you can see in the kombucha, I've covered it with a handkerchief. You can also use cheesecloth or anything else that is a porous cloth. I use a rubber band to seal it. The idea is to stop any gnats or bugs or anything from being able to get into it. But you still want it to be able to breathe through the cloth. So if you take it out, there's my first kombucha one. There you go. So I'm just going to pour it from here into here for now. That's some really good kombucha there. This just gets me into a smaller container. I found that when pouring these in, an even smaller container lets me be a lot more accurate than this larger container, which tends to spill more. So I tend to start with about 2 cups at a time, and I'm just going to fill all of these up almost to the top. You'll see that I start with a good pour, and then it suds up, and I stop, and I'll go to the next one, then I'll come back to it to top it off. You may pour a little slower at the beginning as you get confident with the amount of speed you need to go to in order to fill it up. Now again, this whole process takes about 20 minutes, assuming you have it really narrowed down in. That's why you're doing the tea brewing while you're making the rest of your kombucha here. Nice thing about these videos, of course, is you can fast forward if you need to. If this section is, you already get the idea about this section. Now I'm topping off. I go back to the bottles that I had already done, and I'm going to fill them to the point where the neck starts narrowing. Now it's small enough that I can just go directly into the cup. You do want to leave 2 cups per gallon for the next one. So I can use a little bit more of this juice before I get to my 2 cups needed for the next one. And that is perfect. You notice there's a pellicle still left in here. Almost no juice, and there's 2 cups of juice. You don't have to take it all out. I'm just going to pour that back in there. So again, we have, for the next batch, we have 2 cups of starting tea or kombucha combined with the pellicle that's already there. So I'm just going to put this back over to the side here. We're going to cover it. We'll prepare that in a little bit. Cover it again to make sure that no bugs get in here. Again, bugs really like the vinegar feeling. So here you notice there are 7 bottles that was completed from one. I'm going to do the same thing with the other. I prefer to have 2 containers of kombucha going at a time. So in my case, it's 2 1-gallon containers. Yours might be 2 half-gallon containers. The reason why you want to do that, I haven't had it happen to me yet, but you want to keep an eye out if any kind of mold gets in there. That could happen if you didn't successfully block bugs from coming in, and bugs come in and they give a very distinctive fuzzy color to mold. You can look it up online on what mold looks like. It's very distinctive. And so I always want 2 batches going so that if mold does happen in one, then I can throw that out, that entire batch, and continue on with the other batch and use that as the starter for my next one. And I'm not stuck without a starting kombucha for the next batch. So always have 2 sets. You can also do a backup if you only want 1 set of putting some starter tea and the pellicle in a mason jar and put it in the fridge and refrigerate it, which will basically stop it from brewing too much. And you can have that as your backup if you prefer that instead. Every time that you do brew a batch of kombucha, the pellicle adds another layer. If you look really close, you can see that there are multiple layers on this pellicle. Each of those layers was from another brewing. And so that will eventually get too thick, and you're going to have to either throw out part of it or give it away. When you do that, you'll want to keep the lighter color. That's the newest pellicles. And you'll want to get rid of the darker color. and still maintain a layer to use. But you could easily cut that in half and then, give it to your friends. Let them start brewing kombucha if they want. You notice that when I'm pouring this in, I air gap. I lift the funnel up a little bit from the base, and that allows air to go forward. If I don't air gap, this is what happens. It fills up and just stays there at the top, and it takes a little while for it to drain. If you air gap, then that drains much faster. So it means I don't have to wait for it to funnel through. Almost done, just a little bit more here. We should be down to the 2 cups we're aiming for. Again, I'm topping off a little bit to go to the same level. See how much we have left in this one. Be careful as you're doing that not to get the pellicle to jump into the tea and make a big splash. So yeah, we have very close to 2 cups here as well, which is what we want. So this is perfect. Again, it made 7 bottles each. And I'm gonna cover this one, put it next to the other one. Okay, so far we're still on track over here. You'll notice that we have about 7.5 minutes left. So at this point, we'll seal each of these up. Make sure that before that you do any work with your kombucha, that you do wash your hands with soap, and then make sure you rinse off all the soap, because soap will kill kombucha pretty effectively. Oh, this is bottles the wrong way. If you notice that the bottle's on the wrong side, it's pretty easy to adjust it here. Well, if it hadn't gotten too wide. Just squeeze this together a little bit here. There we go. Still a little bit too. There we go. Oh, I put it on the wrong side again. Technical challenges. Now, the top on, snap it down. There we go. Hopefully our other bottles will not have this issue. for cleaning your bottles, after you have emptied them, then I rinse them out with hot water, and then I run them through the dishwasher because I figure really high temperatures and dishwasher, etc. is really good, and then rinse it out at the very end, let them dry. So I'm sealing all the bottles because I'm going to rinse them off as a group at the end. Which is what I'm about to do now. So I turn on hot water, turn on the spray, and I'll do it from both sides. So here's one side on that side, and the other side, and then this direction, and then the other direction. There you go, those are all rinsed off. I turn them over once to make sure I've mixed the juice in the kombucha. I'll bring it over and I put it right here. So when you're letting them sit, and you will let these sit for approximately 2 days, might be 3 days, but approximately 2 days, and because they're sealed, then the gas cannot escape, and it will self-carbonate itself. It'll build up CO2 all by itself, and you can check to see if the right amount of time has passed by just opening one of them and see if you get that hiss that you get from the CO2 escape. Once about 2 days has passed, you get a nice hiss from it. You can taste it if you want, make sure that it's reached the right amount of bubbly for you. Then you put them in the fridge, and that will basically stop the fermentation process at that point and keep it at about that level. It'll still ferment really slowly. It'll self-carbonate really slowly anyway, but at a much slower speed. There you go. So again, you want these not in direct sunlight, but under a little shaded area is just great. You can, if you need to put them in the sunlight area, then just put like a cloth or something over them to block them from direct sunlight while they're doing their secondary fermentation. And what they're doing at this point is the juice that you've added is kick-starting the fermentation. And so it's already fermented for about a week, but it's kind of consumed all the sugar and the tea that's in it, the caffeine that's in it. And so now it's all kombucha. And when you add that fruit juice, it's like, oh my gosh, fruit sugars, and it speeds up and carbonates faster. And so it will consume part of that juice, but still leave you with that juicy flavor of whatever you choose. So I really enjoy mostly pineapple with a little bit of mango. Some people like watermelon mint. There's a lot of different options you can find online if you look around for your favorite kombucha flavors and how you add that. Make sure that when you do add those, just consider that if you're adding fresh fruit like watermelon or peach or something like that, remember that there will be, if you're not adding straight juice, there will be pulp that's in the drink as well that you may have to filter out at some point. It's hard to drink it when you're trying to navigate around the pulp in the bottle. So just keep track of that as a possible complication. I like using straight juice so that I don't have to navigate around that. Okay, so over here, now that we've cleared off this area, I will rinse off the juice bottles. Again, I have about 2 minutes left on the other one. So I've rinsed off the juice bottles so that I can store that in the fridge. Let's dry them off for a second here. So I'll put those away in the fridge for next time I brew, which will be in about a week. All right, now over here, I'm just gonna clear off some of these things that I've already done so that I'm ready for the next step of the process. Okay, so I'm just rinsing these out real quick. Put these over here to dry. All right, so we are ready for, our timer just went off. You didn't hear that, but it went off in the background. So if you come over here, you can see that we now have, this tea is ready to go. It's been now 20 minutes. So I'll bring it over here. Okay, so each of these tea bags, I like to press the tea bags to get all of the tea out of it. Remember that these tea bags are hot when you're putting it in the trash can. So if you use a plastic bag in your trash can, which many of us do, then make sure that they don't land directly against the plastic. Otherwise they will melt the plastic and you will have holes in your plastic bag when you try to take your trash out. And again, I'm just pressing the liquid out to get as much of the caffeine as I can out of the tea bags. Ooh, it's hot. Careful of your fingers. Now this water is too hot, this tea, to add directly to a kombucha. Adding something this hot will kill the pellicle. And if you don't know about pellicles, pellicles are when you call a SCOBY of kombucha, the SCOBY includes both the starting kombucha, those 2 cups of starting tea, kombucha tea, as well as the pellicle, which is the solid substance, which is a healthy bacteria. Kombucha is made by a colony of healthy bacteria that can survive in very vinegary situations. There you go. All right, so we've taken out all the tea bags. Now remember, this is designed for 2 gallons. So this is 6 cups of hot water that's been added to 12 tea bags. So now 20 minutes has passed, and so that's steeped. I've taken out the tea. I'm now going to add sugar. You will add 1 cup of sugar per gallon. Here's my 1 cup mark. And so because I'm making 2 gallons of kombucha, I will add in 2 cups of sugar. And this is just normal white granulated sugar. I also get it from Costco in bulk. So we're just going to mix this up and put this off to the side. We're just going to mix it until that you can feel like it's all dissolved. You can tell because as you're stirring, you'll get a slightly granulated feeling. At a certain point that will go away and you know that all the sugar has been consumed. I do this now while it's still pretty hot because that it dissolves the sugar faster into the tea. Now the first stage, that first week of kombucha, the healthy bacteria in the tea will convert the caffeine and the sugar into kombucha. And so you end up with very little caffeine and very little amounts of sugar by the time you finish it in a week. Now you do still have some sugar. That's why when you're tasting it, you're balancing how vinegary has it gotten and how sweet is it. There you go. So that is all dissolved now. That's wonderful. So we're going to take this and we're going to split it in half. So remember, this is 6 cups. So we're going to pour it into here until we get to 3 cups. There you go, leaving 3 cups in there. If you come over to the sink here. Now I'm going to add in cold water. Very important to test it. Make sure you add in cold water. Here's cold water. I'm going to add in cold water to about double it. So it's going from 3 cups to approximately 6 cups. It's okay if it's even more than that. I'm actually going to go all the way up to 8 cups because I know that. And I'm trying to really cool down the tea, and so it's not so hot and it won't hurt the kombucha. There you go. It's about 8 cups in there. I bring over one of the teas here. And it should be cool enough that I can add it directly in now. Then I continue adding cold water. And sometimes I'll spray to get around the outside for when I poured it to make sure there's no kombucha remaining on the outside. And I'm going to go about an inch from the top. There you go. That's about right. You want to make sure that the kombucha is not actually touching the top so it doesn't come in contact with the covering layer. So here, take the cloth, put the cloth over. You notice this is in multiple layers of cloth. Doesn't have to be, it can be a single layer, but multiple layers works fine too. Put the rubber band to make sure that no bugs can get into it. And we're putting it underneath here. I'm going to do the same thing briefly with the other one. This is almost identical, so if you've seen the other one, you can skip forward if you like. I'm just adding in cold water and making sure it's cold into the tea. This is just cooling it down because right now it's too hot. And then I'm just going to pour that directly in. Adding cold water, and we're almost at the last step here. So again, I'm pouring this almost all the way to the top, leaving about an inch or so. I'm going to let those suds die down a little bit. There you go, that was enough. Put in the cloth, make sure there's no holes in your cloth when you add it in. Holes means that bugs can get through. Seal it around. Put it back in the shade. And then especially these bottles that are just starting to brew, it's important to make sure they stay out of the sun. And so just as a precautionary method, I'm going to put cloth over them just to make sure, just kind of laying over so that they don't get direct sunlight. There you go. And our process is now complete. We have